Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules. We are going to be talking about how to create a resilient product strategy. And I'm very happy to have our guest speaker here, Chris Mann. He's a tremendous product leader. He has built products from a variety of different companies, all focusing on new market innovations. He was the head of product at Bizzo. Which was ultimately acquired by LinkedIn, and Chris was the group product manager at LinkedIn for LinkedIn's marketing solutions product. And then from there, he moved over into running BrightFunnel as the CEO. So he's got a tremendous amount of experience on how to develop a product strategy and how to alter that and make sure it's adjusting as the market changes. So before I hand it over to Chris, let me take care of a couple of housekeeping items. This webinar is recorded, and we will send this out to you, so feel free to relax, enjoy the webinar, and don't feel stressed out to write everything down or take screen grabs, although you're welcome to. We will also have a Q&A session at the end. So you can ask questions in two ways. You can either go out on Twitter and use the hashtag product experience, or feel free to use the chat window within the webinar platform itself. So with that, let me introduce you all to Chris Mann. And Chris, thank you for joining us today.
Trav, yeah, thanks for the intro. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. This is a topic that I'm super excited about. You made me think of something on the note-taking. Take notes. Take lots of notes. I feel as though I'm a professional note-taker. I take notes. I summarize notes. I process notes. We get agreement on the summarized notes, and those notes become strategies. And so you cannot write enough stuff down, and encourage everybody to just become habitual about writing things down as you go through meetings and so on. The conversation today is a bit of a personal story about taking my game from what I thought was being a great product leader to somebody who was really an organizational leader. And it's a story about product management being the highest calling and having us try to understand that as a group and giving us a framework. In fact, I hope what you walk away from this conversation today is you have a framework and tools to help you practice product management at a much higher level than you may be today already. So the first thing is let's have a common understanding. And when I get hired by a CEO, I always, and when we're talking and it's a two-way interview, and I look at them and I smile and I say, look, you know that product management is the highest calling, right? It is the most important function in your company. And there's usually a smile because the CEO, of course, believes that their function is the most important. But if you do not get the product management function right and craft a great winning product strategy, you will not have a excellent company. You can have a decent company, you can have a good company, but product is the highest calling. All of the functions are important, of course, but product is the most important. And then it's about having an attitude and adopting that attitude that is who you are and who you will become, and the function that you lead within your company as a product leader is going to have a subculture within your company where people recognize you guys as just being excellent at your craft. And so we'll start there. That's what this is about, is getting into that, and we'll go as we go here. So when you enter a company, depending on the CEO who's brought you in, or the company in which you are led by, there's going to be varying degrees of an understanding of how important product is. And in some cases, you'll come into a company and say, hey, we've got product here, go figure out our product roadmap and tell us what the roadmap should be. Like, well, okay, this is the destiny of your entire organization. This should be a highly collaborative, highly thoughtful, all-in process that all of the executives are involved in. So that's a warning signal already as you start to hear that. Now, let's talk about degrees of executive misalignment. This is a situation that I found myself in. This is a real situation. This is not Bizzo. but I won't tell you exactly who it was, but maybe you can figure it out. And so I'm in a company and I'm leading product, and this is our executive team, and the CEO is pounding his fists on the table, and it's like, we're going to enterprise right now. That's the vision. We are destined to be an enterprise. And so I'm getting grounded here, and I'm thinking, okay, well, that's great, but the product's not ready for enterprise. And we're going to churn a bunch of customers, or the new enterprise customers are just going to dominate our roadmap. And we're not going to be strategic. We're going to be reactive if we do that. And the customer success leaders sit thinking, holy cow, I don't have the right people to onboard enterprise. I mean, they have locations all across the globe, and you require a much more sophisticated project management process. And the CTO is saying, I can build anything, man. Let's go right now. And the head of sales is excited because he can close anybody, and he's going to make a ton of money selling into the enterprise. And then when you get in with the CMO, you find that we all had different definitions of customer segmentation. And so marketing is going after slightly different customers than sales is going after, and product is thinking differently about the product capabilities. And so you have these degrees of misalignment that happen in a company, which can cause a lot of trouble within an organization and can impact us as product leaders in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. And so here are the things that are now swirling around when you have this. You can have frustration, there's gossip in the hallway, people get angry, you begin to sell into customers that you can't support, and they churn. And so all this ultimately leads to delayed company progress, and employees can feel like there's lack of vision and leadership at the executive team, and they're not aligned. And all of this stuff is more in the open than you would think. So what is product strategy with that in mind? Well, when a product strategy has the alignment of the company's resources, the people, the functions, in a way that the strategy can be carried out, now you're playing at the highest level. Alignment of the functions so that the strategy can be carried out. That is a company strategy, not a product strategy. It is a company strategy. That's what we do, is we create company strategies as product executives. So in comes continuous strategic execution. What this is this is a framework that I was fortunate enough to learn at my time at Bizzo that sits on top of all of the fundamentals of product management that I'd learned by going to Pragmatic Marketing and Silicon Valley Product Group. This is this final framework that drives executive participation and alignment in building the product strategy in a way that becomes a company strategy. So this is the executive team at Bizzo. This is before we were practicing continuous strategic execution. We had quarterly offsites as the executive team. We felt like we should be together for a day. Made sense that you would. You've got to be thoughtful. We would have agendas that weren't that well thought out. Most of the executives would show up and just talk about the subjects. No one did prep work. And you can see in this meeting, we're watching the Super Bowl, and everybody's really disengaged on our laptops, on the phone. And so very common set of situations as I'm meeting small companies where there really isn't a structured way to run and organize the company strategy. Now, this was an effective team, by the way, even at this point. Good relationships, highly effective team. But Russ, our CEO, is on the right there, second to the TV. He understood this, and he brought in a consultant, super wise old man named Dwight Porter, who 70-year-old guy has been doing this for years, and this is largely Dwight's methodology. And Dwight sat in and guided us through this process, and it just transformed how we work together, the strategy, the revenue projections, the goals that we reached. And so the I'll peel this back as we go and talk about the framework, and I'll give you very specific examples of these things. So there's four main phases to this strategic planning process. There's a learn, a think, a decide, and a plan to act phase. And there's a continual execution element to this, in that you're constantly coming up with new insights and learnings that can be put into action as you go through this process. And it has a business agility built into it so that you can move at the speed which is appropriate for your company's phase of growth. And then it's cyclical in that it has a beginning, middle, end, and then it starts over. So it's something you are running through this process in a continual set of loops, both internal to the process and then external. Now, these ideas can be done on different time horizons, and this depends on the size of your company and the required agility for your company, the phase of your company, as well as a specific project you might want to apply this to. So here's what I mean by that. Let's take project scope as one way to look at it. So let's say we're going to look at updating pricing strategy. We could use this framework and run through this framework in 3 weeks. And if you think about this, learn, think, decide, and plan to act are states of mind in the way that we flip how we're thinking together. So if we're going to do pricing strategy, oftentimes there will be people who want to jump right to a conclusion and say, well, okay, let's take a minute and learn about what everybody's point of view is. What information do we have? What is the sales guy wanting to do? What is the CEO thinking about? What are our competitors doing? What do we all know? And where do we have agreement? Where do we have disagreement? And where are we aligned? Okay, what are our gaps since we now have this in front of us? Okay, let's do a little bit of work to fill those gaps and start to do some thinking so that we have a fuller picture. Do we even know what a price value matrix is? Do we have any framework for doing pricing strategy? Let's go get up to speed on some of the fundamentals of pricing strategy. Let's look at options, let's decide, and then let's put a plan in place to roll it to the company. This could be 3 weeks. This could even be an hour. You can use these ideas to shift the way that you're thinking on a problem. Now, in terms of a company strategy plan, at Bizzo, when we rolled this out, it was a 9-month process that started in late February and would conclude at the end of November. And what it does is it prepares you to roll out bigger and bigger product strategies to larger and larger companies in a very thoughtful, methodical way. And you want to adjust the way you use it to the size of your company as you go. I'll give you more insights into the timing and so forth. So the learn phase is first about just understanding the facts of the business as it stands today, right? So let's get us all on the table. Let's understand everything about the current state of the business and the key areas and questions and challenges so that we really understand the current state of the business and we uncover where we need to get smart. So topics are not limited to, but include segmentation, competition, marketing, sales, churn, customer support, what's happening with the engineering team. Any key issue that the company's facing or key areas of focus should be brought together and discussed as a team. The think phase harnesses the minds of the executive team and the company and outside data to help start getting really smart and thinking and uncovering answers to key questions that we uncovered in the learn phase. And it's collaborative, okay? So for example, at Bizzo, there was a time where we thought we should have a mobile solution, or some people thought we should have a mobile solution. Well, usually you would kick that to the product team and you'd say, hey, product team, go figure out what we should do in mobile. Well, at that point in time, the product team was so loaded, we didn't have bandwidth to go look at mobile. And as an executive team, we all felt it was so important that our COO was going to lead up an initiative to create a point of view on mobile. And so one of my product managers was very excited about mobile, and together they worked on a point of view on that strategy. And it becomes really collaborative now. Everybody's leaning in and working on these things together. Then you get into the decide phase, and this seeks to identify and stack rank the top 6 things that you're going to do in the next year that you must get right to reach your goals, your business plan. And it starts with it has a revenue goal and a roadmap plan and a functional area plan for the year that all backs into these top 6 initiatives. Now, there will be many other things the company does outside of this list of 6, but these are the things that you will all commit to together to getting right and knocking it out of the park. And there will be things you will not do. And you will write these things down, and you will agree to just stop selling into SMB, as an example. We are no longer doing SMB, and we'll all agree to stop doing it together. So I've often had small companies, startup companies, 20, 40, 50, 70 people even tell me, this sounds like so much process. We're a startup. We don't need to do all of this process. We know this business. We live it every day. We're talking all the time on the whiteboard, and we don't need this. And I say, bullshit, man. I've met with your executives, and I can already tell you that your salesperson is misaligned with what your current product roadmap strategy is. And you guys are not as aligned as you think you are. And running really fast without thinking through your alternatives can be running way slower than you think you are. So, example at Bizzo of a story of misdirection, because I was like that. I made that same statement before, where I felt like I was living it, knew everything, and could, doing anything to slow down was not going to help me. And in part of our strategic planning process, one of the parts of our think phase was, should we have a self-service strategy? And so I said, go create a point of view on whether or not we should have a self-service strategy. So I went out and led that point of view myself and got a lot of people excited. It was a very thoughtful piece of work. It had market opportunities, segmentation information, collaboration with all the executives. And I got everybody quite excited. And we all went into one of our strategic planning days, and I said, all in on self-service. It's so obvious now that we should go all in on it. And Dwight Porter, the coach who was leading, said, okay, great piece of work, but we're not going to make a decision yet until we've gone through and evaluated our alternatives. Now, had Dwight not been there, we would have all gone full steam into that. And what ended up happening was we actually set the self-service, we lowered the priority of this initiative for the other things that eventually led to LinkedIn acquiring us. So would have been a pretty big mistake in that case. So plan to act. A strategy is nothing if you don't have the people, the resources, the skills, and all the sub-strategies enabled to carry that out. And so planning to act goes through a process all on its own of making sure you have roadmaps for all of the functional plans and functional areas to carry out the strategy. So in some cases, we've launched new products where I need a different type of salesperson. I need a different type of go-to-market process. You might need a channel. You may need new types of engineering. You may need data scientists you don't have. So all of these things need to be done in concert so that your time to market and time to value is fast, as opposed to alternatives that we've all probably seen where we build a cool new product concept, we begin to launch it, and then we try to drag the rest of the company with us as we go and figure these things out much later than could have been anticipated and planned for had we been really thoughtful. So another story of the difficulty of rolling out a major product to the company. We were at this point in time, we were probably 110 employees. We had created the product concept. It was called the Bizzo multi-channel nurturing product that LinkedIn had ultimately acquired us for. And we went through a successful first launch of the product in the first quarter. And we thought that the launch was successful and that we had done a great job of rolling this thing out and executing on this go-to-market and plan-to-act plan that we had put together. What we found, however, is that we had, through all of the betas and all of the work that had gone on the year before in market, kind of preparing the product to come together, we had built up a pipeline that all hit in that quarter. And in the next quarter following that, we completely fell flat and we sold like 2 deals. And what happened was that our own sales organization and our own customer success organization wasn't learning how to sell the new product. We still a relatively small company, but they're all used to their own sales motions. They're all used to their own customer support motions. And so in this continual execution process, we're now in the next cycle of running our strat planning process that I'm outlining here. And we found this huge miss, and we had to refocus and double down on enabling sales and customer success. And we did it with everything we had. And 2 quarters later, sales were just skyrocketing and LinkedIn acquired us. The point is that rolling out new initiatives, even when the company and execs are highly aligned and you have great plans, can be very hard. Hate to see what would have happened to us had we not been so organized at that time. So at Bizzo, our process was 8 full days, starting in March or late February, ending at the end of November. That gives the company all of December to close business. When you get into January and you're going to have your annual kickoff meeting, no longer is it, hey, we should have a kickoff meeting. What should we talk about? We're going to kick off and roll out the strategy of the company, and we've got very detailed plans on how to do that. These are 9-hour meetings all day, sometimes 10-hour meetings, each meeting at least 30 days apart with very thoughtful agendas, which I'll show you here. Now, this may be one of the most important parts of this and the heart of this process, which may seem a little bit silly, but I use this now in how I conduct a broad set of meetings. Every agenda topic has a Google Doc, and it's written, unless it's something that requires a spreadsheet, or if charts facilitate that better, then fine. But 9 times out of 10, we want a written Google Doc. We want people collaborating on each agenda item so that there's cross-functional collaboration on preparing the agenda. We publish the topics. So if we have an executive strat planning meeting on a Wednesday, everybody has been preparing and working for that meeting for 30 days before that meeting. And 2 days before the meeting, all of the Google Docs for each agenda item are sent out to the executive team. And we all commit to each other that we will read and sign the document before the meeting. And we want folks to use the comment function as much as possible so that the conversation evolves even before the meetings start. What we found was that each meeting had the productivity, I kid you not, of almost 3 of our previous meetings, if not more. Just by pre-reading the material, everybody walks in much more prepared to really grasp the content. The commenting gets everybody moving along, and it's amazing process. And so what we started to experience was this really killer feeling of collaboration, team alignment. We knew we were getting better. We felt like we were feeding up. We felt we felt like we were speeding up. We felt progress. We knew we were becoming great. We were having a ton of fun as the process went on, where here is how we were before, a little bit misaligned, folks not all sure this is good use of their time. to now you look at this meeting and you could hear a pin drop. Everybody's focused except for maybe my buddy Warren in the back. Warren looks like he's on his laptop, but they were so intense and so exciting and a lot of hard work, but everything was out there. Everything gets on the table. Customer success. Why are you churning? What's the problem? Product issues. What are the product issues? Sales. You're not able to close deals in certain customer segments. Why is that? What are your limiters? How do we all work together to everything gets out on the table and there's no more things happening in the hallway, and it's fun. You can see that we were having a ball here while we were doing it. We had an exceptional group of people, but this is the goal. It's be excellent, build killer businesses, harness the thinking and the smarts of all the people in the company, and just have a great time. And that's Dwight, by the way, the older guy there in the blue shirt, just an amazing, amazing guy. And then this is a group of people inside of LinkedIn where we were doing this, and you can see they're having a good time too. So I started running this process inside of LinkedIn. This sat and ran to the side of LinkedIn's product strategy process, which every product manager of any major product presents right to the CEO, to Jeff Weiner. So this would be something that we would do to augment that. And there are people from every function in this room, from sales to development to biz ops to marketing to customer success, are all in this room. So we ran the very same process, and everybody gets a ton out of it. Everyone wants to see all the information. They want to be exposed to all of the learnings. They want to be part of a collaborative process. And so it can be done in a lot of different company situations. So here's an example agenda and how you get these things going. So this would be, let's say, for example, I was going to work with you and we were going to run a process like this inside of your own company. Well, we would plan an all-day agenda. It would have very specific time frames. It would have leaders for the topics, and then it would have subtopics. So the first thing almost always at Bizzo was financial overview. So in this case, our CFO would go through all of the numbers. How are we doing with revenues, hiring plans, CAC, churn, margin? We'd all need to understand the metrics that have to do with our business. And these things could kick off, work products. Why is churn going up? Why is customer acquisition cost going up? These could be agenda items for future meetings. Customer segmentation. What is our point of view on customer segmentation? What are the attributes in which we use to describe our customers, and how mature is the segmentation model? So critical to get everybody on the same page on this. Who are we building for? Who are we marketing to? Who are we selling to? Where is churn? Market opportunity. Some of these things are going to become obvious. What's the competitive situation? We'd have the salesperson might deliver the sales pitch to the team so we can all see how we're selling it and what that messaging is. Marketing will go through the marketing plan of who they're going after, what are their funnel conversion metrics, what are their tactics, what types of customers are responding to marketing. We go through product roadmap in a great level of detail. Customer success will come in and talk about customer success by segmentation, time to value, barriers to onboarding and renewal. You're trying to get everybody to put the information out on the table. What's going well? What are their key blockers? What if resources were unlimited? What would you do in your area to be successful? And this now, as you can see, becomes a very long, full day, and each one of these areas has a full Google Doc, as I've described, that's sent out 2 days in advance for pre-reads. These meetings, this preparation before the meeting, I've walked into many of these with former product guy Nitin Julka, who worked with me at Bizzo and LinkedIn. We'd always look at each other and we'd smile because we knew that 90% of the work had been done before the meeting started. Just so productive. Now, this was the end result. of a strat plan at Bizzo. And what you have across the top are our top 6 strategic initiatives. And then you had the next 4 that didn't make the top 6, but were very important. You have the owner of those initiatives. You have the rank of those initiatives. You have documents that lead to the final version of those strat plans. And then you have the names of every executive and that they've signed off and agree to that strategy. Where there are holes, some people were not critical to signing off on that strategy, or for some reason we didn't complete that. And then on the bottom area where heavy duty functional plans were needed, where we needed new organizations and heavy duty training, these had functional area plan documents which outlined how the new organizations would be structured and who would manage them and what kind of people we need and what the hiring plans were for that. And this becomes a kind of a record, a system of documentation for the recording of what you are going to do and not going to do, because everybody forgets these details. And now you can go back and say, okay, what were the details of our SMB plan? Why did we go? Why did we not go? And it's here for everybody to reference at any time. So there you have it. You have a company strategy. And that's what we had been doing at Bizzo. I call it continuous strategic execution. I've been using it for about 8 years now. And I hope you got something out of that, and appreciate you listening. Happy to take questions.
Fantastic. Chris, thank you so much for sharing all that information. I certainly appreciate the examples that you gave, kind of how you lived and breathed this methodology, and then the specific artifacts that you were creating along the way to help align the business. I think it's just tremendous examples to share. So now everyone in the audience, we'd love to if you have questions for Chris, feel free to ask them. You can either post out on Twitter using the hashtag product experience, or feel free to post in within the webinar chat itself. There's a little screen there, and we'll go ahead and I will read through any questions that you guys have. So we'll go ahead and give a minute there while you are typing these things up. We will embrace the awkward silence.
Any question is a good question. I always say, if you have something on your mind, somebody else has got that same question. So
true.
Don't hesitate to let it rip.
Okay, so here's I got a question coming in. So Chris, what do you feel are the best ways for early stage startups with only co-founders working to adapt or to adopt this?
Yeah. What I would do is here's what I'm thinking is the first thing I do is I would make sure that I would look at an agenda, like if we're still got the charts going here. Am I allowed to get back up there? I would look at like a sample agenda here, and I would think about the key questions that is facing the company, and I would make an abbreviated version of this. And so if it's a small group of people, you can accomplish the same thing by doing it in half days instead of full days, but doing half days separated over a period of time. And I would make sure, first of all, that you're doing the blocking and tackling on the fundamentals, and a lot of the fundamental topics are here: customer segmentation, market opportunity, go to market. Like, how are those things going? What are your key questions in those areas? And make sure that you're being thoughtful about everything and take some time to go over all of the fundamentals. And then for the areas that are your really key, meaty, existential questions, put the time into being thoughtful and writing out ideas into a document. It doesn't have to be like, I got to where I could write some of these documents in a matter of hours. And when you're a startup person living and breathing this, the process of writing it down always furthers your thinking. Even if you have a real deep handle on it, it always takes your thinking a little farther, and then it lets other people really grasp your thinking. So you can adopt it to really any size of company. It's just a matter of making sure that it's efficient and focused to the agility of what's right for your business. I'd be happy to talk to anybody offline if they want to jump on the phone for an hour and just go through specifics of your situation. You can see I'm having trouble giving a real prescriptive answer on that, but happy to go through your scenario with you if you'd like.
Great. So we've got a couple other questions coming in now. So we have one here. So Chris, is there any particular advice you'd give to product leaders managing internal product competition? So for example, two similar products being sold at the same time.
Well, okay. So internal product competition and two products being sold at the same time. I'm not sure I know what the root of the question is, but I'll go ahead and take a guess at that. Does that sound all right, Travis?
Yeah. I think when you have, let's say there's, multiple products that are being sold, I think is kind of, how do you address that if you own or manage one of the products, but maybe not both? How do you address that?
Yeah. So we need to have all the facts on the table. And if, at the Bizzo strat planning process, we would have multiple product managers would come and participate in the agenda. And so we would have, days that were much more focused on deep dives into certain product areas. And each product manager would come in and present their point of view and the situation on their business. And it's up to the executive team in collaboration with the product manager to get all of the data out on the table. And so it's going to be a business decision for the company as to, where to put resources and where to invest based on, the ultimate question of company strategy.
Okay, so Chris, there's been an update to the question, a little more detail here.
Yes.
So in this case, the person asked the question, there's two learning management systems that are being sold by the same company.
Yep. Is there more to that?
No, that was the addition there.
Yeah, it sounds like somebody's wrestling with a pretty, heavy question within their organization. And that's going to take a lot of work and thought. I can't give a short answer as to how to resolve something like that. But I can say at the heart of it, it's going to be a lot of very open and thoughtful discussion, research, and analysis as to the situation, the details of it, and what your alternatives are. And hopefully you're in an environment where that can be creative and you can have a thoughtful and exciting process to go through it. It reminds me of inside of LinkedIn. I don't know if any of you followed. Some people are familiar with when LinkedIn acquired Bizzo, and then about a year and a half later, the decision was made to shut down the Bizzo products because there was internal competition between the Bizzo advertising capabilities and LinkedIn's own capabilities. And for me, that was an incredibly painful and emotional situation because I had created this system that LinkedIn acquired, and I still believed it was the best advertising answer for B2B marketers. However, in the context of LinkedIn, when we went through and looked at all of the facts, I had to come to the point where I was able to recommend shutting the Bizzo products down myself. And I did that by heavy analysis of the facts and thinking through what was best for LinkedIn. It was very difficult, but it was the right thing to do.
Great. So we have a number of questions coming in. So Chris, here's another one. How do you incorporate customer feature requests into your continuous strategic execution process? And how would you communicate this strategy or roadmap back to your customer base?
Yeah, that's great. Um, well, first of all, we should have every source of information that can influence our thinking in terms of our product strategy should be inputs. Um, we should be reading all customer support tickets. If we're in a massive organization like LinkedIn, it gets tough to read all of them, but you'd be surprised at how many you can get through and how many patterns, what patterns you would see even in a big company like that. You should be meeting and discussing, always networking with startups in and around your area because there's so much innovation. Even if the company's not directly in your space, but the things that they're doing could be related to, you want to get information from all sources, and customer feature requests are one of those sources. And it's up to it. That is your job as the product manager to now internalize and balance all of that information together with the needs of your business to figure out what to build and what not to build. It can be very easy to have a roadmap based of customer feature requests that are many things are nice to have but not critical to the customer, and you need to be able to go back to the customer and say, hey customer, I know you want feature A, but if I got you feature B, it'd make you $200, and wouldn't you be happy to set aside feature A for that? And they will tell you that they're so happy that you're the product manager because you know better than they do what they need. So you've got to try to get there yourself. And I don't know if that's sorry, I'm going around the question. I'm trying to take the question on directly, but also answering some adjacent things I would think you'd want to be thinking about.
Great. Chris, here's another one related to the sessions themselves. So how do you handle conflicts during these sessions? The statement, the fine balance between learning different points of views and gaining consensus. It's kind of that statement that followed the question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So part of the process, well, for one, if you can have an outside mediator participate in that, who is a non-emotional kind of third party that's at arm's length, that helps a lot, as they're going to see these things, emotional conversations taking place, and be able to help diffuse it. And knowing that that's their role in the meeting takes that responsibility off of everybody. So that's incredibly helpful. Now at LinkedIn, we didn't have that. And at BrightFunnel, I didn't have it. So I was doing that as well. So what you do is you build into your process that things are going to come up that are heavy conversations, and that what you're trying to do is foster a degree of open discussion. And then you're also trying to capture new potential work projects, which one of these conflicts or rat holes can become an important new work product. For example, pricing strategy. We've had times where the head of sales and the head of product get into long debate and emotional debate on pricing strategy, and it's something that's not really been thought through or well resolved, but it's been an issue for everybody. It's like, okay, what you try to do is you try to cut that off after you can see it's begun to get it's the productivity has ended, right? And so you say, okay, important topic. Pricing is so critical. And I think we've uncovered some really great things here. But to answer that question, that's a 2-week project on its own. So let's write this on the wall. And you're going to have, as you may have seen in one of the pictures back here, we had a wall that was just full of to-dos and comments where it's a possible agenda item for the next meeting. And then what you'll find is the people who are in that argument are so happy that you got them out of it, and that maybe later in the day that everybody looks at the balance of all of the potential topics, and that's no longer an issue in the scheme of things. So it's a difficult part of the whole process. That's why Russ hired Dwight Porter to come in and run it for us. It's great if you can get somebody from the outside, but think of some tactics like that to help manage the meeting, and even establish those ground rules. What happens if a conversation goes long? We're going to park it. We're going to put it on the wall as an agenda item, and everybody's going to work together to keep it on time. And I would put a lot of energy on, like, the time is the time. Like, we thought through this agenda, and everybody sticks to it. You don't let people go off. You've got to be a hawk for the agenda time. If the subject wasn't complete, that means we need to move on to putting that back on the next agenda. So that's really important too, because the time management it's very easy for the whole meeting to blow up in the first couple hours of the meeting if you don't keep everyone focused.
Got it. So Chris, what would you recommend as the distribution of time allocated between sharing information and soliciting feedback in those sessions?
Yeah, let me think about that. When I'm thinking about the sessions that I've run, a lot of it is cross education. So you're getting just a ton of different functional areas, educating people, educating the other areas on what's going on in their department, or a collaborative effort on a team on a new subject matter like entering mobile. And so it's a real combination of getting information out there so people can learn, and then getting their reactions to the information so that we can harness their intelligence that they have on the subject matter. So I don't know how to put it in a bucket. It makes me, it depends on the subject. Yeah, I would be happy to talk through specific situations to help product managers kind of work through navigating a lot of this is coming, as you can see within these questions. We have I'm reading into this, but we have, I get lots of feedback. People want to tell us, what they want on the roadmap, or we have competition that's hard to resolve. A lot of this comes down to people and communication and alignment. Is this last mile that we're trying to get to, and this framework is designed to make a collaborative environment where everybody comes to the table with what they know, what they wish they had to be successful, and you make all these decisions together so that when you're not doing feature number 2 on the roadmap, no longer is the customer success guy wanted it really bad, but he's so happy that you're now getting into mobile that he's living with that, feature not being there, and everybody's made the same decisions together. So you just does so much for everybody if you can make this kind of thing happen.
Great. So we got time for one more question here. We have here a question says, the question is related to the transition of culture between moving from Bizzo. So I assume your transformation to Bizzo required some culture change. Can you describe how that process went and how you approached aligning the team and dealt with inertia of the old way, and how long did that transition take?
And was that transition from which transition point? Is that inside of LinkedIn, or was it from when we started the strat planning process inside of Bizzo?
That's a good question. So for the person who asked that, if you could clarify, we could answer it in the context of adopting this from when you started that planning process.
Eugene Cherney. Hey, Eugene. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. So, so when we started this at Bizzo, Russ basically announced it as, hey, look, I just thought our executive meetings could be more productive. And we hired this guy who's going to moderate our meetings. And so it's like, okay. So we go into the first meeting, and the first meeting wasn't set up in the way I would have set it up, meaning when I put this into an organization, I talk to all of the folks involved, and I start to do a lot of listening first, and they start to tell you what's going on and where the alignment and misalignment is. And then I start to describe a process that would get everybody aligned. And then invariably, folks are like, yeah, that would be so cool. I would love to do that. And then before I get going, then I get all the players involved in creating an agenda, and then I get them involved in preparing for the agenda. So you walk into that first meeting and it's really humming. What happened at Bizzo was we walked into the first meeting, and I had no preparation as to what the agenda would be. And I found out that this whole new thing was really at the core about the product process. And I was scared to death because we were in a transitional time at the company where the product strategy wasn't that clear. I had been there for 2 years. I was the product guy. And now we got this consultant who's getting us all focused on the product strategy. And I'm thinking, holy shit, man, this is all about me. I could lose my job here. So it was a little scary, but what turned out to be was just an amazing process that I had embraced, and it helped me pull a lot of ideas together and leverage the team to do it that were just kind of sitting in front of us, and we all weren't really pushing hard enough to get to that next level. And so it was definitely adjustment. It was hard. I was scared for a while. But it was amazing. The result was just amazing.
Great, Eugene. Thank you for that question. So let's go ahead and wrap it up here, Chris. So let me start, Chris, by thanking you for joining, sharing your experience. It's been tremendously helpful to hear about it. I'd like to thank our attendees for such thoughtful questions that were coming in. And I'd like to leave you, really, everyone, with two things. So if you're interested in how you can adopt this process further, feel free to reach out to Chris. His email is productmann, M-A-N-N, @gmail.com. If you have further questions. And I'd also like to offer you a free trial of Apptrinsic. We help product teams get information that would support these collaborative strategic planning discussions. So with that, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.